Based off the title, you can probably guess it was a slow week. World Indoors has just concluded, so there's a slow transition into the outdoor season, but this week there were two interesting meets I had my eye on. The first World Continental Gold meeting of the year in Melbourne, in which I attended in person, with Gout laced up into some horrid weather conditions, as usual, and Kennedy proved to be the star of the show.
We've been here before, Kennedy in front, Gout coming hard.
And secondly, the Jamaican Inter-Secondary Schools Championship, in which, hear me out, Jamaican high schoolers are the fastest in the world. But first, let's get into it with the boldest claim of the video.
Up to Kennedy's shoulder, Lockie clearly in front there and goes...
So at this point, I'm a bit of a white man 100-meter historian. Honestly, it's not a difficult task, nor a very serious one, since compared to the depth of the actual 100-meter world record, there are only 6 white men who have run sub 10 seconds. And besides Christophe Lemaitre, each athlete has only run below that 10-second barrier once. White men just aren't very strong 100-meter runners. And truthfully, that's probably not about to change. But Lachlan Kennedy this weekend did show some serious promise.
Away.
First, in the 100-meter, where he starts strong, like usual, but utterly blows out this field in the closing 40 meters.
Gets up to Kennedy's shoulder, Lockie clearly in front there and goes right away to beat Browning.
And hits us with the most Zuma celebration seen on a track to date. It's hard to judge Kennedy's closing speed objectively when the athletes around him aren't elite finishers themselves, and they ran 10.3, but just through the eye test, it does look like he's found another gear in his back half compared to last year, which is a really great sign. And while the time 10.03 seconds isn't impressive at an initial glance, what makes it impressive is some of the context. This is Kennedy's 100-meter season opener, in March, after a calf injury that took him out for 6 months midway through last year. We've been desensitized by high schoolers running sub 10 that we forget 10 seconds is a sliding opener no matter the athlete. To really nail that point home, Oblique Seville opened his season last year with a 10.08. Noah Lyles opened with a 10 flat, and that was in July. Kenny Benerick opened with a 10.07. Brian Lavelle opened with a 10.16 with a 4.0 wind, and Tobago opened with a 10.55, but he wasn't really that fast last season anyway. And the list goes on. Because of this opener, do I think Kennedy is going to match these guys later in the season? I mean, I can dream, but probably not. But it is fair to say, 9.9 and a shot at Lemaitre's 9.92, it's completely on the cards, especially when we look at consistency. Kennedy has run 10.03 or under 5 times now. Walker, Bowling, Beck and Tortu never even ran under 10.3 besides their one sub 10 second run. Genuinely, it's a bit embarrassing just how bad their second fastest times were. And all of this ignores that the conditions were pretty damn horrible. It was evening, the sun hadn't been out for a couple hours, it was cold, 15 degrees Celsius, with no tailwind to speak of. And 15 degrees may or may not be cold depending on where you live, but just look at the audience. Everyone is wearing long pants and some sort of coat, there isn't a single bit of skin showing unless it's the athletes. This isn't a midday meet in Texas or Florida where a lot of American pros open up, where the conditions actually help you run faster. It's an autumn meet at nighttime in Australia on a track that is notoriously slow. And heads up, he's also only 22 years old, as if you couldn't tell from the celebration. He'd fit right in the NCAAs. It's only our first glimpse at Kennedy for the year, but as a pretty neutral prediction, I'd say mid 9.9 for sure given a better day. And optimistically, a new white man 100-meter world record heading further into the year. And of course, he also featured in the 200 meters about an hour and a half later against Gout. And Gout just cannot catch a break. The weather already wasn't good, and then comes the rain only for the duration of the 200 meter. It was essentially a repeat result of last year.
Away.
Kennedy devouring Gout on the curve within 10 steps, and although Gout finishes extremely strong, he just can't quite nip him at the line.
We've been here before, Kennedy in front, Gout coming hard. We've seen it before and he's done it again.
Firstly, congrats to Kennedy again for doing it a second year in a row, and considering the conditions, he's actually a pretty strong 200 meter runner at this point, and the fact he isn't scared to run them will only benefit his 100 as well. But in terms of Gout, his 100 meter opener was extremely impressive. A 10 flat in February this year, which as we discussed is an incredible opener no matter the athlete. But since he ran with the flu to some average times, and tonight he got beat in the rain by Kennedy, to again some average times. But that's just it. I think they were average times. Online I'm seeing a weird amount of hate. With social media, there's just a ton more scrutiny on young athletes than we've ever seen before. And I think because of that, people are just expecting too much. Every time Gout touches the track, he isn't going to run record times. Record times come from trusting the process, following the plan, and tapering into your season, which I think Gout and Kennedy are both doing this year. Yes, it's about to be the Oz Domestic Championships, so you could argue maybe they're peaking right now, but I just don't think they are. They did that last year, they suffered a bit internationally. Now, their focus is different. Gout talked about it. He wants to win at the World Under-20s, and Kennedy, he wants to win at the Commonwealth Games.
I'm confident and I really want to bring home gold for the Aussies.
Which are both run in August. Again, it simply comes down to looking at what all the under-20 athletes who are faster than Gout ran as their season openers in their record-breaking season. Gout's looking alright. Just ignore Knighton though, that was a freaky season. Overall, I wouldn't be worried, and I don't think a lot of real fans are. There's still all year to run sub 20. And again, ignoring Knighton because he's a freaky outlier, the next best under 20 time ever is 19.93 by Bolt. That is easily within Gout's grasp this year. Jamaican high schoolers are the fastest in the world. This statement might be a bit provocative. Yes, technically, Americans produce the fastest high schoolers, we don't need a lesson on that, but Jamaica in comparison is a tiny country. In fact, there are more high schoolers in Texas alone than there are people in the entirety of Jamaica. So it's freaky to see results like this at a singular high school meet in Jamaica. Raquelme Reed won the boys Class 1 100 meter title with a 10.11. He's a tall sprinter who looks pretty darn raw, easily a lot more development to come from him. 15-year-old Kai Kelly went 10.28 to win Class 2, with some beautifully fluid form. 16-year-old Natrice East blitzed to an 11.21 in the girls Class 2 final. And a 15-year-old Jason Pitter went 45.76 in the 400 meter for the Class 2 title as well. That is a time faster than what Quincy Wilson ran at the same age. And all of these times done with very legal wins. None of this Texas Hurricane malarkey. But still, the highlight was easily 18-year-old Shanoya Douglas. Firstly, in her secondary event, the 100 meters, she obliterated the field in a dirty second half looking like a peak Melissa Jefferson.
Douglas, a stunning performance from a superlative athlete.
10.98 seconds, the first sub-11 second time in the world this year with a very neutral wind. And she was sleeping in the blocks, which looking back at her previous races this year, it just seems to be the norm for her. Here's her running 11.37 at the Eastern Champs the week prior, taking a snooze again. But like I said, this is her secondary event, because she came back 2 days later to do even better in the 200 meter final.
Sent off race on the Douglas wastes no time.
Against a brutal 1.6 meter per second headwind, she obliterates the fastest high schoolers Jamaica has to offer by what? Near 20 meters?
As she comes across the line, 22.33.
Already, just raw times from both events makes her the 10th all-time in the under 20 women's 100 meter and under 20 women's 200 meter. And just based off her start, there's some very low-hanging fruit to drop an extra few hundredths. Although really delving into the times of the fastest ever under 20 200 meter athletes, you'll notice each athlete ran their race with a nice positive tailwind, while her negative 1.6 stands out like a sore thumb. It's the only headwind on this list, and it's massive at that. She is going to climb this list given a few more opportunities. And this doesn't even mention, this 200 meter time came on her 6th race in 4 days. Just imagine, neutral wind. She only runs the 200 meter rounds. What type of time are we looking at right now? Of course, there are wind adjustment calculators that can give us an idea, not counting the rounds, but while they do a fantastic job adjusting windy 100 meter times, the 200, not so much. Based off one of these calculators, it would have her running a 22.19 in neutral wind, which is probably a pretty good ballpark estimate. But 200 meter wind gauges only measure the straight, so we don't know what type of assistance or disadvantage she was seeing on the bend. So considering the circumstances, wind and amount of races, Douglas going sub 22 is looking pretty imminent this year, which would place her as the number 2 under 20 all time. But of course, that's all theoretical. And that was the week in my eyes. Thank you for sticking around if you have, and there's a special one coming next week. Little spoiler, but Sha'Carri Richardson and Christian Coleman will be running at the stall gift. You know, the staggered start grass running. So at the very least, that is going to be ridiculously entertaining. Catch you in the next.